Revenge films.
I've been working at this real estate company for a few years now. This one time, we put up a wanted ad for the full-time concierge got to live there for free and didn't have to pay for the heating bills. So we got a lot of candidates, mostly middle-aged couples. But being a full-time concierge wasn't easy. A lot of people quit after a few months. You have to check the building thoroughly almost every day. Sometimes you even have to repair stuff yourself. You also had to manage the garbage too, and when someone breaks the rule, you gotta go talk to them. This is never easy because those types rarely listen. And you have to handle all the complaints too, so it's pretty tough mentally too. If someone's being really difficult, it can really mess with your head. Still, lots of people applied for the position because of the benefits. This time, there were about 6 candidates. One day I was conducting an interview. Then this couple walked in. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the wife. I looked at her resume. It was her, there was no doubt about it. We were both in our 50s now, but she still had that mean look in her face. We sat down and talked. I asked her which high school she went to. Bingo, it was her all right. I knew it. Back in high school, she harassed me almost every day. My family owned a company and her dad worked there. Turns out he was stealing office supplies from us. When my parents found out, they fired him. After that, their parents got a divorce. Stealing is wrong and there was really no excuse for what he did. But at the time, I had no idea about any of this, so I was so confused when she started harassing me. We weren't even in the same class. We had nothing in common, to be honest, but she just kept coming at me. I probably shouldn't have let her push me around like that, but I didn't want to fight a girl, so I tried to ignore her. Plus, she was a shoplifter herself. I didn't want anything to do with her. At first, she just said mean things to me, and that was fine. But it got worse by the day. This one time, she ran into me on purpose in the hallway. I nearly got hurt. After a little while, I talked to my parents and my teachers about her, but that only pissed her off even more. A few days later, she pushed me down the stairs. I got a nasty scar on my forehead. After I fell, I looked up as I drifted in and out of consciousness. She was smiling. The look on her face gave me goosebumps. But there was no proof. It was her word against mine. She never got punished for what she did. I was hospitalized for days. I was in a lot of pain, but she never came to visit me. When I came back, she just laughed at me. But it was right before graduation and I was ready to move on. I never saw her again after graduation. Until now. Who would have thought? Her husband looked pretty useless. I took a look at his resume. He didn't go to college and he worked at multiple companies I've never heard of. He was currently unemployed. It said he quit due to personal reasons. But from the looks of it, I'm pretty sure he got fired. And I could tell that the woman was really desperate for this job. Her husband was out of a job. I guess she really needed this. Alright then, let's get started. I said as I pulled back my hair, showing them the scar on my head. I stuck my head out, hoping she'd recognize me, but it didn't work. I continued on with the interview. Well, for starters, I can't have anyone with a criminal record. You don't have a criminal record, right?
Of course not. I've never broken a law.
She said. Seriously? But hold on. It says here that you got caught shoplifting in high school. I said as I stared at her resume.
What? I didn't write that.
She started to panic.
My parents were going through some things at the time, and I was just a teenager, you know? But it was just that one time, I swear.
Liar. Strange. I think you got caught multiple times if I remember correctly. Also, you switched schools, didn't you? Why isn't that on here? Are you lying to me?
How do you know?
She started to panic even more. Could you tell me why you switched schools? I need to know if I'm gonna consider you for this position. That was a lie, and I guess she realized that. She looked at my face and gasped.
Wait. Are you Bob?
I didn't respond. I just showed her my scar. Sorry, but I know you injured a student there. I can't hire someone like that. Sorry. Her face turned blue. I think she remembers now. How she pushed me down those stairs. How she bullied me for years. What's wrong, ma'am? I asked with a smirk on my face. I guess she wasn't expecting me to be the interviewer. She was panicking. She stayed silent for a while. A few minutes later, she finally said,
I'm sorry, we'll be going now.
Then she ran out of the room. Her husband looked confused. He turned around and looked at me. Thanks for coming. Goodbye. He still looked confused, but he had no choice. He ran after his wife. He had nothing to do with what she did years ago, so I kind of felt bad. But I wouldn't have hired him anyways. He's not built for this. Like I said before, it's not easy being a concierge. You get complaints about noise and garbage all the time, and most of the time, people just ignore you or yell at you. He'd never be able to deal with people like that. Anyways, I wasn't expecting her to show up, but it felt pretty good. I finally got some sweet revenge after all these years.
A few years ago, my friend texted me asking for my help. Apparently, his wife sold all his collectibles without his permission. I went over to his house right away, but after I heard what his wife had to say, I was a bit confused.
He doesn't pay for anything. That's why I sold it.
Something didn't feel right. Lots of couples manage their own money these days. Looks like there were two sides to this story. So I decided to hear them out. His wife said,
I told him if he doesn't pay, I'm gonna sell his stuff. He said go ahead. I dare you. So I did.
I never meant it like that!
Not my problem.
I asked him why he wasn't paying for groceries and other living expenses. She makes more money than me! And we're getting by just fine! So why should I pay? He said confidently. I was starting to think my friend was the crazy one here. Then I found out something shocking. His wife was the one who was paying the mortgage. He didn't pay a dime! He said this was because he paid $30,000 for the down payment.
Not true. We paid $30,000. I paid $20,000. You only paid $10,000. And I said you didn't have to pay in the first 6 months. You haven't paid in 5 years.
She's got a point. Then he said, You say don't pay the heating bill, but I don't use electricity or gas! You do!
Yes, because I cook and clean for you. Don't you get that?
But still, you're the one using electricity!
Yes, but I'm doing all that for you. Plus, you don't even pay for groceries. And you're always stealing food from the fridge.
But you said you'd pay for the food!
I'd be fine with that if you paid for the other stuff, but you don't. And pay for your own snacks.
Clearly, my friend was the crazy one here. And his wife just kept going on and on. She must have a lot to get off her chest. My friend tried to counter it by saying that he paid for his cell phone, lunch, and video games. I was speechless. I had no idea he was like this. My friends told me that they get allowance from their wives. They get $50 every time we go out drinking. But I pay for it myself! His wife was losing her mind listening to him. I told her to leave the room for a few minutes to settle down. Then I explained to him the basics of money and how finance worked. After I was done with him, we tried it again. But she makes more money than me! It was no use. This was out of my hands. I asked my colleagues and boss for help. They all told him how wrong it was. It took a long time, but he finally understood. Turns out his wife had been meaning to sell off his stuff for a while now, and she finally snapped when she asked him how much savings he had. They wanted kids, too, so it was only fair that she asked. I got about $2,000 saved! Impressive, right? She didn't know what to tell him. They've known each other since they were kids. She was 2 years older than him, so she took care of him, and he took it for granted. He looked more like a child than a husband to me. I thought he was all grown up, but that wasn't the case, I guess. She was pretty patient with him, though. She's been asking him to pay the mortgage and groceries for a while now, but all he said was, "Oh, come on, just pay for me." I guess he thought her money was his money. And even after they started talking about having kids, he kept buying expensive stuff for himself. So she got worried and asked if he had any savings. Of course I do! I got a lot of money saved up! But he was spending a lot of money for himself, so she asked him to give her a number. I got about $2,000 saved! Impressive, right? That's when she realized she had to do something. At this rate, his spending spree will never stop. And he didn't even realize that his wife would have to stop working after she got pregnant. When I told him about this, he just said, "What? Wait! Why?" I didn't know what to say to him. Who's gonna put food on the table while she's pregnant then? Ask her! She's the one that pays for everything! I had no idea that he was so stupid. I was speechless. Then he went to his wife. Those collectibles you threw out would have been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in 10 years or so! Pay me back!
Stop being ridiculous! I barely got $1,000 for all of it! He was devastated. Then she brought up divorce. She said she couldn't be with someone who was so irresponsible. Can you blame her? He didn't pay for anything, and he had no intentions to change that, even after having kids. It was a perfectly normal reaction, so I talked to him again. It took me hours before he finally understood. I made him promise to hand over all his money to his wife. I even got it in writing. His wife decided to give him another chance. Afterwards, he only got $50 every month. I can't do anything anymore! But since everyone at work knew about what happened... You did this to yourself! Just be grateful that your wife didn't leave you! Yeah, if you're gonna complain, leave her! But oh wait! If you leave her, that means you have to start paying for everything yourself! If that happens, you might starve to death! Ha ha! Seriously though, you should be grateful for her. After what happened, you're so lucky that she's still with you. 3 months later, I ran into his wife at the grocery store.
Hey, thanks for the other day.
She said she was scared that day. She thought her husband and I were going to team up against her. She said she was really happy that I took the time to listen to her side of the story. How is he now? She told me he finally understood, thanks to us. He hands over his paycheck to her every month. She also told me that she was pregnant. After she told him the amount of money needed to raise a child, he opened a new bank account and threw all his savings into it, which came as a surprise to her. Congratulations! I guess my friend learned his lesson. Good for him!
Found out my husband Bob was cheating on me. He was seeing his mom's friend's daughter, who was also married at the time. When I confronted him, he begged me for another chance. But his mom, Katie, really loved Blair, the girl he was seeing. What about Blair? She's so sweet. Forget her. Stick with Blair. Looks like she wanted her son to stay with Blair. Turns out Kathy wanted Bob to marry Blair all along. We've been married for 6 years now, but she's praised Blair's name in front of me every chance she got. Bob wanted to start over, but not me. I was done with him. Then Katie said, "We'll pay you whatever you want. Just stay out of his way." And so we settled. The divorce was finalized, and Katie paid me in full with the money she got for selling the house. "This is for my baby Bob and Blair. It's worth every penny." She paid me $50,000 in damages. When she handed me the money, she said, "I guess you can buy happiness with money." Then I sued Blair for damages. Katie flipped out. "I already gave you $50,000. That's more than enough. Stop being greedy." She was furious, but it's pretty normal for the wife to sue the mistress. I guess she didn't know. It didn't matter how much I got from my husband. One had nothing to do with the other.
This is none of your business. This is within my rights. If you don't stop harassing me, I'll sue you too.
Then, Blair's ex-husband sued Bob for damages. Like I said, she was married too, so good riddance. But Katie was pretty surprised by this. She didn't know that Blair's ex-husband could sue Bob like that. How stupid is she? She was planning to get a new house and live happily ever after with Bob, Blair, and their kids. But she soon realized that it wasn't gonna work. In the end, she ended up paying Blair's ex-husband because she didn't want this going to trial. She wanted to protect her son and his girlfriend, I guess. And now, with all that out of the way, she thought she was in the clear. She was planning to pay for the down payment herself and get Bob to take out a mortgage. But then she found out that Bob was already up to his neck in debt. She was shocked, but she paid back his debts for him. But then, Blair got back together with her ex-husband. Things weren't going as planned for her. She started to panic, but there wasn't much she could do. The house was huge, and it wasn't cheap to take it down. So, in the end, they didn't have much money left. They sold the house and everything. Too bad for them. Then, one day, she came over to see me at my parents' house. How did she know I was here? "Your stupid daughter stole $50,000 from me! Give it back! Now!" That's it. I've had enough. I decided to tell her everything I've been bottling up all these years. "Listen, I know you wanted grandkids, but your son is infertile. Bet you didn't know that." "Huh?" She looked confused. So I explained it to her in words she could understand. We tried to have a baby, but couldn't for years. So we went to see a doctor. That's when we found out that Bob was infertile. Want to see the report? "No! Liar!" "Sorry, but it's true. I hate to break it to you, but your son will never be able to have kids. I guess no grandkids for you. You understand what I'm saying?" I said with a big smile on my face. Man, that felt good. She was yelling at first, but I guess she realized that I was telling her the truth. Blair was gone, and she was never going to see her grandchildren. She was devastated. She left the house without saying a word. My parents wanted to say something to her too for what she did to me, but I handled it just fine. They told me, "Good job." After that, the two of them moved into a small apartment. Then Bob started to show his true colors. Not sure why or how, but he was in debt again. A few years ago, he bought an Alfa Romeo that cost more than $50,000. He could have sold that to pay off his debt, but didn't. They were barely making ends meet. And come to think of it, it all started with the Alfa Romeo a few years back.
I want a car like that someday.
So he started working really hard to save up money. He lived with his parents, and when he had enough for a down payment, he took out a loan and bought his dream car. Pretty normal, right? This is how most people buy cars. But my husband was stupid.
I didn't know you could pay for things later. I could buy anything I want.
He started using his credit card like crazy. He realized that he could buy things even if he didn't have the cash on hand, and he loved it. And there were all kinds of payment plans like revolving credit. He seemed really excited about all of this. I worked too, so we were able to make ends meet, but now that I was gone, they were broke. Then, less than a month later, she came crying to me. "Help me, please!" Can you believe her? "I was wrong to say all those things about you. Please take Bob back. Please. You're the only one for him. I'm sorry I upset you. I really am. And I'm sorry for my son, too. He should have never cheated on you. He was so lucky to have you." She begged me to forgive her. "Blair's mom was my best friend, and I wanted her to be happy too, but I realize now that I was wrong. Listen, I don't care if we're broke. We just want to start over with you. Please." Seriously? Wow. Then she started complaining about her son. "This is all his fault. We're the victims here. You don't have to marry him again if you don't want to. I know that's a lot to ask, but please come back to us. Please." She wasn't making any sense. I just wanted her out of my life. "Hell no! Get out!" "Please, Ellie, I'm really sorry." "I don't care. I'm happy right where I am." "Please, I'm an old woman. Please have mercy." "You remember the things you said to me? Things you did to me?" "I do, and I'm sorry." "And I know you just want me back for the money. And you're right, I got plenty of money now, thanks to you. But sorry, you're a complete stranger to me now, so..." "Please!" Ugh. A cheating ex-husband, up to his neck in debt, and his mean, twisted mother. Why the hell would I go back and live with you guys? Are you dumb? Then Mom came between us and told me to stop. "Just get out, now. If not, I'm calling the cops. And if you come back again, I'm suing you. Never show your face in front of me again." She finally gave up and left. I don't know what happened to them after, and I don't care. It's not my fault her son grew up to be a loser. Anyways, I got settlement money from both Bob and Blair. So I had more than enough money. Plus, I still had my job, so money wasn't a problem for me. Glad I didn't quit my job when I got married to him. This one time we were planning a family trip to Taiwan during the New Year's holiday. I ordered the airplane tickets, but it never arrived, so I talked to my husband about it. "Hey, the tickets haven't arrived yet."
You sure? You call the travel agency?
"Yeah, they said they sent it out a week ago."
A week ago? Maybe you should call them again.
Okay. Why can't they just send it to me via email? Whatever. I called the travel agency again. They told me that they'd send the tickets again. I said thank you and hung up, but something felt off. Then I stepped out the house. My friend Ollie was talking with the other moms in the neighborhood.
You guys going anywhere for New Year's holiday?
My baby is too young to travel, so I'm staying home. I'm gonna visit my parents.
Oh yeah? I'm going to Taiwan with my family.
Oh, that's so nice. Looks like Ollie was going to Taiwan as well. But wait a minute. She had a son in kindergarten and a newborn baby. Who travels abroad with a newborn baby during the busy season? I told my husband what happened, but he didn't think much of it.
They're probably hiring a babysitter or something.
But the baby is 3 months old. And I don't think they have a passport either.
True. Guess it's kind of weird.
We thought about it for a while, but couldn't figure it out. Then the next day, I was talking to some of the moms at the kindergarten. Then I noticed Ollie talking with her friends.
I'm going to Taiwan for the holidays.
Oh, how nice!
Then my friend Blair asked me, "Wait, didn't you say you were going to Taiwan too?" Yeah, she's going there with her newborn baby, so she must really know her way around Taiwan. I'm taking my son with me, so maybe she can teach me a thing or two. But then Blair said,
I don't think she knows a whole lot about traveling.
"What do you mean?" She told me that Ollie came over to her house last night.
Hello.
Hey Ollie, what's up?
Do you know anything about passports? We all have one except for the baby, and
I'm not sure. It may take a while.
I guess, but he's just a baby, so I'm sure they'll let him in without one.
What? I don't think so. The travel agency didn't say anything when you told them that your son didn't have a passport.
A friend gave me the ticket, so I wish he had told us.
Blair said she felt something was off. I had a bad feeling. I told her about my tickets going missing. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? She lives near you, so... Yeah. If I were you, I'd drop it though. She'll cause you nothing but trouble. She was right. I was pissed, but I didn't want to get involved with her. I decided to stay quiet. But how did she know that we were going to Taiwan in the first place? Was she spying on us or something? Anyways, a few days later we got the ticket. We went on vacation as planned. We had a great time there. A few days later we came home. When we arrived at our house, Allie came running over.
You back from Taiwan?
I wasn't happy to see her. Yeah, so what?
Whatever, I guess you didn't hear. Forget it.
Then she ran back home. What was all that about?
What's wrong with her? Whatever, let's go inside.
Said my husband. As I was unpacking, I got a call. It was from the travel agency. Then we found out the shocking truth. Turns out Ollie tried to get on the plane using our tickets. She used whiteout to change the name. Needless to say, she couldn't get in. They took her into the office for some questioning, but she just kept saying,
A friend gave it to me.
and she even stole a passport for her baby because she couldn't get one on time. She used whiteout and tried to forge the documents. I quickly got the video camera and voice recorder out of the suitcase and headed over to Ollie's house to talk to Ollie and her husband. I rang the doorbell and Ollie opened the door. I could tell that she wasn't happy to see me.
Yes, what is it?
She said, "We gotta talk. Your husband home? He needs to hear this too."
He's got nothing to do with this.
What's going on, Allie?
Nothing. Go away.
I guess she didn't want her husband to find out. In December, our airplane tickets went missing. I know you guys try to use those tickets to go to Taiwan. Her husband was shocked.
Wait a minute. Allie told me that a friend gave her those tickets.
And you believed her? Those things cost thousands of dollars. Plus, you need to have matching passports to use those tickets. But then Ollie said,
Oh, I didn't know that. What a waste of time. Hey, pay us back for the train fare. We went to the airport for nothing. This is your fault.
I couldn't believe her. I finally snapped. You realize this is theft, right? I'm going to the police.
Settle down. I just did it to make your life harder. That makes it a civil dispute. The police won't do anything. Go home now.
Bye, she said with a big smile on her face, but then her husband slapped her.
I'm terribly sorry for what she did. I had no idea.
Why are you apologizing to her? This is all their fault. Then he slapped her again.
Don't you realize what you've done? I'm telling your mom. Apologize to her. Now!
She realized that she was screwed. Then she started crying. I'm sorry. Then she finally apologized.
We're terribly sorry. We'll make this right.
So I decided to call it a night. A week later, they came over to the house to apologize. They even paid me for the damages.
We're terribly sorry for everything. It will never happen again.
Fine, but if you try anything like this again, I'm going straight to the police. I wanted to make her suffer, but I kind of felt bad for her husband. Plus, they paid me in full, so I decided to forgive them. I never talked to Ollie after that. But somehow, everyone found out about what she did. Things got awkward for her, and she moved out of the city a year later.
I went to my friend Allie's wedding the other day. She and I worked together. But the groom didn't show up, and neither did his parents. All the relatives were panicking, and the bride didn't come out of her room. So her dad had no choice but to cancel the wedding. It just became a regular dinner party. Nobody knew what happened, but there was all kinds of theories going around. The relatives on the groom's side went around apologizing to everyone. I kind of felt bad. Then, a few days later, I got a call from Allie. She explained everything that happened. The groom, Bob, had his ex, but she didn't want to quit her job after getting married, so he broke up with her. Then he met Allie and decided to get married. Everything was going well. But then his ex came into the picture again. She told him that she'll quit her job if he still wants to marry her. And Bob still had feelings for her, so he said yes. So basically, he was cheating on Allie all this time. He tried to tell her many times, but couldn't. Then it was the day of the wedding. Bob panicked and decided to ditch the wedding. And when he told his parents that he wasn't going, they decided to ditch the wedding too. Unbelievable! Who does that, right? Didn't they realize what this would do to their guests? Their relatives? So selfish! I felt really bad for the relatives. And even when Allie's parents went to see Bob's parents, they didn't answer the door. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her, hey, you dodged a bullet here. Forget that jerk. Still, what kind of person does that to his fiancée? I was so mad for what they did to my friend. But with Bob gone, how did she find out about all this? Well, turns out this ex was one of her subordinates. Why did all of this happen? Why did he ditch the wedding? Allie trusted Bob completely, so she had no idea what happened to her. She didn't even know about the affair. But a few days later, she got a text from the ex. She confessed to everything. But from what I heard, she was getting fired soon. So she knew she wasn't gonna see her again. She just wanted to get some things off of her conscience. Allie told me about her before. She was really bad at her job. No wonder she got fired. That's probably why she decided to get back with Bob. But she knew about Allie and Bob. She had to. And Allie was her boss. She covered for her countless times. Everyone kind of avoided her because she was so useless. But Allie kept trying to teach her the ropes. Ugh, I'm so mad at her! Allie asked the company if she could come work for them again since the wedding was canceled. And they were more than happy to have her back. She was brilliant and really talented. Her colleagues heard about what happened and tried to comfort her when she returned. Bob worked as a salesman for one of the clients we did business with. But everyone at work found out about what he did. Allie was really talented, but she never bragged about it. And she treated everyone with respect, including Bob's ex, so everyone at work loved her. But Bob's reputation went down the drain. Plus, a lot of people knew about his affair. A few months after the wedding, there were some new developments. For starters, none of us wanted to see Bob ever again, so he got taken off the team. Allie was coming back, and the thought of seeing him made me sick, so I was pretty happy about that. I think the higher-ups pulled some strings to make it happen. Our company was pretty big, and to Bob's company, we were a pretty big account. I heard they threatened to terminate the contract if they didn't get rid of Bob or something. Their CEO even came and apologized in person. Afterwards, Bob got transferred to some dead-end position. He was done for. Then, one day, I ran into the relatives I saw at the wedding. I'm really sorry about the other day. No, it's okay. Then she told me about what happened after the wedding. Apparently, they had a big family meeting with all of the relatives after the incident. And they tore Bob's parents apart.
Your son is a terrible person! Shame on you. We had to apologize to everyone at the wedding. What the hell is wrong with you? You better make this right. We're gonna sue you. He was having an affair? That's why he ditched the wedding? You've gotta be kidding me.
I heard Bob had no choice but to break it off with her. After the family meeting, his parents told him to end things with her once and for all. And so she was all alone again. And Bob got transferred to the middle of nowhere, so she couldn't see him even if she wanted to. And she couldn't get a new job anywhere. She had no marketable skills. So now she was alone and broke. She was done for. As for Allie, she was back and killing it. And considering what she just went through, it was pretty impressive. Unlike Bob, she was loved by everyone at work. So everyone helped her get back on her feet. Allie's parents were really shocked about what happened. But they were really happy to learn that she had a lot of friends who cared about her very much. When they called off the wedding, it was pretty awkward at first. But after a little while, everyone started talking about Allie, so I guess that's how they found out. They were really upset about what happened. But in the end, her mom thanked everyone for being such good friends. Everyone started crying when she said that, including Allie. I still feel really bad for what happened. After all, it was her wedding. But Allie is a wonderful person. I'm sure she'll find someone much better than that loser. Good luck, Allie.
When my mom saw my face when I was born, she screamed and said,
Why does she look like her? She's so ugly.
She was talking about her sister, my aunt. She was a brilliant lady and everyone knew it. And my mom didn't like that. She always had it out for her, ever since she was a kid. Then she made her mom and sister take care of me and tried to have another baby who wasn't so ugly. and she was really confident that her next daughter would be pretty. In our family, the first daughter is always ugly, but the second daughter is pretty. It's just how it is. Not sure how that works, but a year later she gave birth to her second daughter, and she was pretty. And so I was stuck with a pretty sister and a mother who didn't like me. And Dad was never home. He was always working. I never got new clothes. She always made me wear old clothes my sister didn't use anymore. And I only got things like pens and notebooks for Christmas. They clearly didn't want me around. But given the way they treated me, I turned out okay, I guess. But there was one thing that really pissed me off. Back in high school, I saved up to buy a nice purse for myself. But my sister took it away from me, saying that she looked better with it. "She's right. You're not pretty enough to have a purse like this," said my mom. I wanted to get my own place after high school, so I worked like crazy. But then, when I was in 11th grade, I started thinking about college. I liked to read, so I wanted to learn new things. So I told my dad that I wanted to go to college to study psychology, but he didn't seem interested. He just told me to go ask Mom. So I did, but she said no.
Why not? If you go to college, it'll mess up our plan.
Plan? Ollie wants to go study abroad, but she's pretty, so I'm worried. So I want to go with her, you know? And it's gonna cost a lot of money, so no college for you. Seriously? You're ugly. You won't like it there anyways.
Yeah, you're too ugly to go to college.
What? I went to see my aunt for help. She never saw me crying, so she looked worried. When I told her what happened, she flipped out. "Don't you worry about a thing. I'll pay for whatever you need, dear." I was so relieved, I started crying again. And so after high school, I moved into her house and went on to college. No more Mom or Ollie. It was so nice here. Then 3 years later, my mom came over to see us. Ollie,
She's getting married.
what? The thing is, she never left the country. She was a sophomore in college. According to Mom, she met someone at one of the seminars for the exchange program. He worked at a really big firm, so she started dating him. And now she's gonna drop out and marry him. He's so handsome. I'm so proud of her. But you'd never be able to land a man like that. Is that what you came here to say? Oh, sorry, no. I don't want you coming to the wedding, okay? Huh? We don't want people to know that she has an ugly sister, and her fiancé might call off the wedding if he thinks it's hereditary, so... We already told him that Ollie was the only child, so... Just stay away from us, okay? Even after the wedding. How can she say that? Why did you give birth to me in the first place? I couldn't stop crying, even after she left. My aunt stood next to me and tried to comfort me. But then, a few days later, I got over it. I was no longer sad. I was pissed. After all the things they did to me, I don't deserve this. And my aunt felt the same way. I want to get some revenge. I was just about to say the same thing. So we came up with a plan, and we got a lot of support. Next day, I went to see my parents. Just to be clear, you don't want me at the wedding, right? I told you already, you're just too ugly.
Yeah, you better not show up.
Okay, gloves off. I got it all on tape. Then my aunt and I made a few calls. Hey, I need your help. There's nobody here, and nobody is picking up. What's going on? We gotta do something. Can you help me make a few calls? It was wedding day. My mom called me. She was freaking out. I could also hear Ollie in the background. She was panicking. My aunt and I couldn't stop smiling. Oh, it's your wedding day? Sorry, I had no idea. I never got an invitation, so... Oh, and as for your guests, they're here. Not sure why, though. What? What are you talking about? Today is Ollie's big day. And why are you with my sister? You're supposed to be here at the wedding. Get over here and bring everyone with you. So, as you may have already guessed, we sent the recording to all the relatives. Everyone found out about what my mom and Ollie said to me. And Mom was always like this, so nobody really liked her. They all wanted to help and decided to not show up at the wedding. No ugly people at the wedding, right? Well, I'm not that good looking, so I won't be there.
You always judged people based on their looks. But I never thought you did the same thing to your daughter. Shame on you. Never call me again.
Please, please come. Her fiancé's family is really upset. Please, they're gonna call up the marriage. But nobody from our side showed up. Actually, my cousin headed over there out of curiosity. She sent us a pic. It was my mom and sister crying on the floor. Their face was a mess. We all had a good laugh. And when her fiancé found out that she was lying to him all along, he called off the marriage.
This is all your fault. I still have to pay for the venue. You pay for it.
You're asking me for help now? But you didn't even want me at your wedding. This must be embarrassing for you. I want nothing to do with you anymore. Never contact me again. And to my surprise, Dad left Mom too.
They're all grown up now, so I'm done.
My aunt told me that he never wanted to marry her in the first place. Apparently, when they were dating, they got into a car accident, and it was his fault, so he married her to make things right or something. That's probably why he could never go against her. Dad left them some money when he left, and they were able to pay for the ceremony with it. But since both of them didn't work, they ran out of cash pretty quickly. Today, they live in a really old apartment together. Mom was hoping that Ollie would get a job, but she never lifted a finger. Then one day, she took all the money that was left and ran off. She had no choice but to get a job herself. She's never worked in her life, so it wasn't easy for her. As for me, after graduating college, I became a therapist to help others struggling with abusive families. I still got a lot of things to learn, but it's really rewarding. Today, I live happily with my aunt.
This was about 16 years ago. Back then, I lived with my wife and son. Life was good, you know? But after my son turned 4, things started to fall apart. I met my wife through work. 6 months before the wedding, we started living together. She quit her job to become a housewife. Back then, I was really busy with my work and my house was a mess. So she decided to quit and do things around the house for me. But I was always working late. Sometimes I had to work on the weekends. I barely got to see her. But she never complained. She was so good to me. She did everything around the house for me. A few months later, after the wedding, we found out that she was pregnant. It was a beautiful boy. He looked exactly like my wife. My dad was a banker who was never home, and my mom died when I was a kid, so I never got to spend a lot of time with my parents. So I didn't want to do that to my kid. I was going to do all kinds of stuff with him. Go to the beach, go fishing, go camping, play catch, all that good stuff. I was so happy. And life was good. But then, on my son's 4th birthday, my brother said to me, "His blood type, he's not your son." I was so stupid. I never even thought about it, but I was type AB, and my wife was type O, same as our son. But the odds of my son being a type O was less than 0.001%. It was a 1 in a million case. My brother suggested that I do a DNA test, and I agreed. One day, my son said, "Dad, let's play soccer!" But it just wasn't the same. I know it's not his fault, but still. And he looked nothing like me or my wife. I was starting to feel disgusted. I waited anxiously for the results to come back.
Bob says you're not playing with him as much. What happened?
Said my wife one day. I just said, "Oh, sorry, I've been busy with work." How can she just talk to me like that, though? She was starting to piss me off. 3 weeks later, the test results came back. It wasn't my kid. Everything started to fall apart in front of me. I thought about keeping quiet about this to keep the peace. Soon, I lost my mind. I even tried to kill myself once. When my brother saw me in the hospital, he said, "Dude, it's over." So I asked him to take it from there. He started collecting evidence. Unlike me, my brother was super smart. He was an elite, and so were his friends. He got a dream team together in no time, including his friend who was a lawyer. Then he got everyone together at the lawyer's office. He handed them the results of the DNA test and told them what I wanted. At first, she tried to lie her way out of it.
Blood type? These things happen sometimes, trust me. He's the father.
But when she saw the results of the DNA test, she knew she was screwed. She started hyperventilating. Then she spilled everything.
I moved in with him. I wanted to do things around the house for him, you know? But he was barely home, and I got really lonely. So I started using one of those dating apps. That's when I met Bob. At first, it was just dinner, but soon we got really close, and...
And you knew the kid was his, right? Why didn't you say anything? My brother nearly died because of you.
I didn't know. I thought about calling off the marriage, but we already paid for the wedding, and I just felt bad for everyone, so I kept quiet.
I had nothing to say to her. I wasn't even sad anymore. After that, my brother and the lawyer tore them apart. Her dad worked at the city office. Unlike me, he graduated from a really good university, so he always looked down on me, my ex-wife too. So at first, he thought he could talk his way out of this, but after my lawyer was done with him, he looked like an empty shell of a man. My wife ended up paying me $80,000. The guy ended up paying me $40,000. Here's the breakdown. $52,000 for alimony from the ex-wife, including the wedding fee. $22,000 for the money I spent to raise her son. $6,500 for the money she took out of my savings account. $30,000 for alimony from the guy. $6,500 for the money he took out of my savings account. My lawyer told me that it was a lot for a divorce settlement, probably the most he's seen in his career. He said it was a huge victory, but honestly, I didn't care about the money. I just wanted this to be a bad dream. The guy was completely broke after paying me, so he said he couldn't raise a child. He promised to never see my ex-wife again and left. In the end, I took custody of my son. But it was 6 months after the divorce. At first, I was so disgusted by all of this. I said to my wife, "I don't ever want to see you or your son again." I thought I wouldn't be able to look at him in his eyes even if I took him in. But then, a few months after the divorce, I made a new discovery about my ex-wife. Turns out the guy she was seeing wasn't even the father. First, I was convinced that he was the father because he was type B, but he was actually type BB. My brother did some more digging. Turns out she had relations with many different guys. She had a lot of skeletons in the closet. Scared about what might come out next, She left her son at her parents' house and disappeared into thin air. She didn't deserve to be a mother. When I heard about all of this, I felt so bad for my son. I couldn't stop thinking about him, so I decided to take him in. Since nobody knew who the real father was, his grandparents weren't very nice. Even after I took him in, he didn't open up to me for a while. I should have done this from the beginning. None of this was his fault. I felt so bad. Anyways, fast forward a few years. He graduated college, got a job, and left home. Then, on his first payday... Hey, Dad, you free this weekend? I'll be in town, so wanna grab a drink? It's my first payday, so it's on me. Thanks, son. But you should save that money for yourself. Oh, come on, Dad. Just let me buy you a drink. I owe everything to you, Dad. Owe me? Yeah, you raised me single-handedly, even though I wasn't really related to you. You knew? Of course I know. I remember everything. I was so happy when you came and picked me up from my grandparents' house. Everything I have today is because of you, Dad. So thank you. Really. I cried like a baby. And I felt so bad. I mean, after the divorce, I thought about abandoning him. He's such a sweet kid. All kinds of emotions ran through my mind. I couldn't stop crying for a while. Thanks for being my son. I love you, kiddo. He didn't say anything back to me, though. He just sat there and smiled.
Ran into some family trouble the other day. I met my boyfriend Alex in high school. We went off to different colleges, but we kept seeing each other. We both got a job after that, and a few years later, we decided to get married. His family house was in the countryside. They were really wealthy. There were only 8 houses in that area. I was literally in the middle of nowhere. I was kind of worried about moving there, but his parents were real nice.
Thank you for coming all the way out here.
If you need anything, all you gotta do is ask, okay? They were so kind and considerate. I was so relieved. He had quite a big family. His parents, grandparents, 2 brothers, and 1 sister.
We're shutting down the farm in a few years. There's plenty of land, so you can build your house wherever you like.
Said his father. When I stood up to go to the bathroom, I heard his grandma say something under her breath. You're spoiling them. She clicked her tongue. I turned around and looked at her. But her dad snapped at her.
Stop it, Mom.
She went quiet after that. I guess she was just old and grumpy. But something happened about 6 months later. Alex got into an accident. He was badly injured. He was lucky to be alive. He made it out alive, but he was now disabled. The silver lining was, the injury to his head wasn't that severe. The doctor told us that with some rehabilitation work, he'd be able to go home in a few months. I was so relieved to hear that. But then, back at his parents' house...
He's our oldest son, but now he's disabled.
He can't take over the family business now.
Let's forget about him.
While he was in the hospital, his younger brother started visiting him often.
Hey, you must be tired. Want me to give you a massage? I'm pretty good at it. Here, gotta loosen up those legs.
He always asked me if I wanted a massage. It was kind of creepy. He always tries to touch me. It was kind of gross. But he was still family, so I always tried to be polite when I said no. Then, a few months later, his other brother started visiting him. He was worse than the other brother. He kept touching me even though I told him to stop. When Alex saw this, he yelled at him and told him to stop. After that, he never visited him again. Then, I got a text from his sister. How did she get my number? I wondered.
Hey, my brother gave me your number. Can we talk? Just the two of us?
I was so confused. I only gave my number to his mom. But she said she got it from her brother. But she was always polite to me. I decided to go see her at a restaurant.
You may not believe what I'm about to tell you, but bear with me.
Then she started talking. Alex's grandparents were very strict. In their family, the oldest son always took over the family business. It was a family tradition. And even though Alex's parents were thinking about shutting down the farm, they said no. They wanted us to take over the family farm no matter what. His grandfather was always the one in charge. Nobody could really go against him. But their farm wasn't doing so well either, so then the accident happened. Now that Alex was disabled, they said that he could no longer take over the family farm. Now they had to consider their other sons to look after the business. But since they were both single, they had to get married first. That's why they sent him over to the hospital and made them hit on me. At first, Alex's parents said no.
Get with the times.
That's not how things work these days. But they couldn't change their minds.
Go! Just knock her up and get it over with.
That's why they were all over me. They didn't care who it was. They just needed to marry someone. But their mom wasn't sold. She knew this was wrong and that something had to be done. So she talked to her daughter about it. After their talk, her daughter decided to contact me. I was terrified to hear this. What the hell is wrong with them? Get with the times, seriously! I can't just leave Alex to be with his brothers for their family business, I told her.
Of course. Let me take care of the rest.
After that, she helped us plan our escape. She handled all of the paperwork and even talked to Alex's company about transferring him to a different branch. A few months later, he was finally free from his family. He moved out first, and I was going to meet him at a new place. Alex could still use a computer, so the accident didn't really affect his work. But right after he left town, his brother came over to my apartment with his friends. It was a close call. He said all kinds of things about me to his friends. How I seduced him and toyed with his feelings.
Come out here, slut! I know you're home!
Yeah! Come out and apologize to him right now!
Come out, or I'll set fire to the apartment!
They sounded pretty drunk. They stayed outside of my house for 2 hours yelling. The neighbors called the cops, and I texted Alex's sister for help. She sent one of her friends to get them to stop. Then the cops came over and took them all away. Then, one of his friends started making threats saying he knew a local politician. Turns out he was just blowing smoke. The entire town found out what happened in no time. It was pretty embarrassing for Alex's family. And his father snapped after that. He beat the crap out of his 2 sons and decided to move out with his wife. And while his parents were panicking, the daughter and I left the house too. Afterwards, we all worked together to help his parents leave town as well. The youngest son decided to move out with his parents. But the second son decided to stay behind, still thinking that one day he can take over the family business. As for Alex, he was feeling much better. He still needed help from time to time, but things were looking great for him. The youngest son got a job too, but his parents still didn't trust him, so they kept a close eye on him. So far, he hasn't bothered me. As for the other brother, this might sound cruel, but he could rot in hell with his grandparents for all I care.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.